Hello, I'm Wendy Williams, founder of Williams Educational Consultants. I work with families with students kindergarten all the way through graduate school and do some career counseling. With my experience, I've had the pleasure of working with many colleagues. One in particular that I have here today is Dr. Lindsey, a psychologist who works with individuals to help enhance their own performance. Today, Dr. Lindsey and I will be talking about her role as a sports psychologist and the importance of developing the mental part of one's game. So before we begin, first, I just want to say hello and welcome and go Owls.
Yes, go Owls. Go Owls.
How are you doing?
I am doing as well as I can be with as minimal sports that there are in the current world.
That is very hard for you, I am sure. There's a lot of questions, a lot of concern, a lot of anxiety.
Oh, yes, there's a lot of that uncertainty. And how do you manage that? And how do you still stay prepared?
Right. Well, let's start
when you're not
with
sure
you.
when you're going to need to perform. So.
Let's start with you. Tell me, what is a sports psychologist?
Essentially, I work with athletes to help train their mind. So athletes do a lot of work and spend a lot of time and energy and sacrificing for developing their physical abilities, so their strength, their endurance, but also their technical abilities. Those they spend hours in the cage, they are at the field or at the court and working on their craft. And what a lot of them fail to realize is that as they reach higher and higher levels, their athletic differences are not very distinct. They're a lot similar to their competitors. And what makes the difference is how much how their mentality is in their approach to the game. How are they able to stay focused and recover from failure and still stay confident in their abilities? There's a lot of those things that have nothing to do with the next, technical tip that a coach can give them. It's all about what's going on between their ears.
So, question, what do you think comes first? Do you think the mental component or the athletic component? They always say the chicken or the egg, which is first?
Ideally, I'd love for them to grow together.
Okay.
And that's part of what, is on my heart and what I'm working on developing for high school athletes is really integrating mental training with physical training. So it's not so separate that you go over there and do the mental stuff and over there for the physical stuff. But I think that as we're growing up, we kind of play like checkers with it. We move one piece ahead a little bit, then you got to catch up with this one. And so it goes back and forth. But I think a lot of times we focus on the physical and technical parts first because it's easier to see. And it's something that the coaches that we can get at 5 through 15 that they feel comfortable with. Most of them are not comfortable with telling you how to deal with when you're angry or when you're disappointed or when you're embarrassed.
Right.
We still have the whole you get hurt, rub dirt on it, you're okay.
I have 3 boys, as you know, and my middle child, as you know, plays baseball, and I can tell you, if not my own, but when a child strikes out, the first thing the coach says is, "There's no crying. You cannot cry." So that it's something that I've heard growing through those stages, not necessarily at the field that I'm at now, but that is true. Rubbing dirt and no tears.
Yes, and so there's a lot of this, we learn maybe what to do or what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to stay strong. We're supposed to be tough, but no one ever tells you how.
Right.
Okay, great. So in that situation, I'm not supposed to cry, but what am I supposed to do? Like how striking out sucks. It's not fun. It was a failure. It was disappointing. That's not what I went up there trying to do. Of course, I'm going to be hurt and sad and mad and frustrated. What do I do about that? I just go sit down and act like it didn't happen?
And watch the next guy behind you hit a home run,
That even lays it on a little bit more. So you have to be able to have strategies to manage that and how to maybe reframe and rework what failure means and allow yourself to have an emotional experience and then move through it, rather than just either shoving it under and hoping that it doesn't come back to blow up in your face, or holding on to it and carrying it throughout the rest of the game.
Good tips. Tell me, do you find a real big myth when it comes to sports psychologists?
Yes. So probably the biggest myth that I experience when I work with people is this idea that you have to be weak, crazy, or be a problem athlete to go and work with a sports psychologist. And that's really not the case. I try to explain it similarly to when you go and work with a pitching coach or a strength and conditioning coach, or you go work on your agility. You're not going because you have no coordination and you're not capable at all. You're going to up level your skills. And that's what I'm doing. I'm just doing it for the mental component, so that mindset piece, rather than the other ones. And so I think recognizing that all athletes need it,
Yes.
especially to be successful at high levels, all athletes need it. And so let's go ahead and start intentionally training for it, rather than it being, oh, you're not good enough. You have to go get that part worked on.
Right. Do you have a favorite sport? Because you work with all athletes. It doesn't have to be baseball. I mean, you definitely have a connection with baseball, but
I do have a connection. I do have a connection with baseball. My family grew up playing baseball. I played softball and basketball. So that was kind of our sweet spot as a family. It's hard for me to have a favorite sport because it depends on, like, there are some sports that I love to watch. I find them very intriguing and fun, and there's a lot going on. Lacrosse, rugby, gymnastics, also probably because they're things that I would love to do, but know that I can't. So it kind of depends on if I want to watch it. If I want to do it myself, I would say my favorite is Olympic lifting, which is what I do currently. Well, not maybe currently, I'm still coming back from baby, so, but getting back to that point. So I don't really have like a specific favorite that I only want to work with a certain sport with athletes. I want to work with athletes who want to be the best athlete they can be, regardless of whatever sport that is. I want to help them get to be the best for them. And if they're willing to put in the time and effort, then I am very excited to be there along with them for that journey.
Tell me, I know all ages, all sports, but let's focus on the high schooler. Right.
Sure.
Now with COVID and different things happening with all athletic teams, what do you think high schoolers are thinking that are supposed to be playing sports and that they are not? Can you give us some tips on what they should be doing, how they might be developing their mental game during this time?
So what I would, for those of you who are in a current situation where you're supposed to be playing, but you're not, season's put on hold indefinitely for some of you. For the athletes that I've worked with personally as well, we focus on when we come out at the end of this, because at some point this will end.
Yes.
When we get to the end of it and we look back, what do we want to be able to look back and say about how we use this time to make ourselves better? Because we want to get to the end of it and not look back and go, oh, I'm kind of in the same spot that I am before we started this. You have all this extra time, so you can use it to improve you in some way. Now, whether that now you have time to, finally put on some of that weight that you needed to put on that you couldn't do because you're always working and doing all of that you want to develop more strength in an area, you want to work on your mental skills and really dive into that because you have the time, you're not so focused on just competing, then I think that kind of, for you, if you can figure out what that goal is of when I get to the end of this, how do I want to be better, more complete athlete, a next level up, what would that take for me? And then work backwards from there. What do I have to do to become that version of me?
What do you think is the best mental skill to develop as an athlete?
So I actually teach a lot of different mental skills, and I actually focus on 10 separate mental abilities. And for me, I find that the best mental ability is really dependent upon that person. So for some people, it's about their ability to manage their emotions, that they're really strong at that, and we want to keep that as high as it can be. For others, it's their ability to stay concentrated. They very rarely get distracted. They're able to pull their brain back as soon as they do. So for me, there's not really a one perfect fits all best skill. All of the skills that I teach are things that I think everyone needs. It's just kind of at varying levels. So just like a tennis player might have an amazing serve, but just an okay backhand.
Right.
They're not going to be fantastic at everything. So that's kind of, I think, one of the biggest things. I think right now, probably one of the biggest things that comes up is the recognizing what you have control over and what you have no control over.
Right, right. What makes a good coach? Is there anything to look for? I mean,
I know. Wouldn't it just be easy if I could just list out, like, these are the best things for the coach? There's really not a best coach. I look at coach athlete fit. So you want to make sure, just like, and you probably have this with careers, right? You want to make sure that your student fits best within their career. The same thing goes with an athlete within a team and with their coach. We want to make sure that it's a good personality fit. So some people are completely fine with a coach yelling because the yelling part doesn't scare them away. As long as it's not demeaning, there's a difference.
there's a difference.
You know, I think most people benefit from having a coach that is encouraging in some ways and pushing and challenging in other ways, as well as a coach that recognizes that you are more than just an athlete, so that who you are is more than what you do on the field and in the stat sheet. That there are other aspects, especially for the high school kids, because very few of you, if any, only play a sport. You also are in school. You also are doing, you know, in a church or doing other extracurricular activities.
Right.
Have families that you're a part of. There's all of these other aspects. And so recognizing that all of that makes up an athlete, I think, is probably one of the biggest things that you want to have in a coach.
Because the percentage too of the high school athletes that actually go on to college or professional is slim, right?
It is because there's just so many athletes and there's so many high schools, and then there's a lot fewer colleges. And it depends too. I'm sure you have to balance this with some of your students. D1 school,
Yes.
and what comes with that academically and socially, but maybe we're not there athletically, versus a D2 or a D3. And so you have to layer all of that in. So I think for most athletes, if they really want to play somewhere, we can find them a place.
Mm-hmm.
But it also needs to fit for some of the other parts of them too.
Right.
So,
and I do say, when I'm doing that whole college connection and placing students that are athletes, I always say we have to have a list that could be a B list to have in case you get hurt and you can't play. What are you going to do? So that's important too. You have to have more interest than just that sport.
well, and the interesting thing about sports is that even if you're amazing and you're a professional, right now, like, retirement age for professional athletes are like mid-30s. You know, if you get 40 and you're still playing, that's a big deal. Like, I mean, there's not many athletes who do that outside of a couple of sports, right? So like golf, you can keep going for a little while. Equestrian tends to be an older sport as well, but a lot of them are, they just are. It's hard to maintain that high of a level as your body ages. And so regardless, you're going to have something after sport.
Right.
It might be when you're 18, it might be when you're 22, or it might be when you're, 35 and you're retired after having been a professional athlete. There's still a lot of life left. And so there always needs to be a plan B, even if plan A is successful.
That's true.
For athletics.
That's true. Now, you do a lot of podcasts. I think that's what we would call them, right? Where you're talking about your 10 mental tips to develop, right?
I do, yes, I do Facebook Live on my page. I'm fingers crossed I can work into a podcast at some point.
You and I both.
I can only take on so much. I got to be smart on this. You can't do everything all at once.
No, well, tell our viewers who will be interested in working with you after watching this, how do they find you?
Yes, so I am on Facebook and Instagram are the best places to find me. I am listed as The Athletes Academy on Facebook, and on Instagram, you have underscores, so the_athletes_academy, and that's where you can find me. I post a lot of tips and tricks and quotes, and there's some stuff coming down the pipeline, hopefully October. I'm not going to put an official date out there yet because I need to be sure.
Yeah, don't put that pressure on you.
But it is something, it will be coming very soon. And it's something specifically for high school athletes. So bringing me to them, because I know that it's really hard for athletes to, one, find the time, but also find the money to be able to work with me one-on-one. And so I kind of want to bring me into your home.
Love it.
Into your back pocket so that you can actually start to incorporate these things and have it really be fully integrated. Awesome. So, yeah.
Let's say this, when you do make it happen, let's regroup and have another one about that.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, we will talk all about it and dive into every single aspect. That would be fantastic. Right.
Before we go, tell me, I just have one question I ask everybody. What brings you joy, especially during this season?
Can it be both joy and exhaustion and exasperation all rolled into one?
Are you talking about your children?
What gave it away? Yes. They're wonderful. They're hilarious. There's probably not a day goes by that I don't laugh at them, because they are. I've got a 2-year-old and a 5-month-old, and the 2-year-old's potty training right now, so that is a whole nother beast. So again, also the exasperation on one end. But I would say right now that's kind of been, the one thing that I can always know that I can come back to. And when the world is falling apart, at least I have these 2 little rays of sunshine that
little nuggets of love.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Lindsey, for joining us today for this conversation. We do have a little connection at Owls, so I'll say go Owls, and I gotta say it. Go Atlanta Braves.
No, you can shout out for the Braves too. Yes,
they're doing amazing.
They are doing quite well. It has been enjoyable to have them back on.
Yes.
To be able to watch. So.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and we will talk soon.
Fantastic. Have a great one. Thanks for having me on.
Bye.
Bye.